I do apologise for the lack of light in the property. I don't know if it's very dingy to watch this stuff, but anyway, what I was going to talk about was I have referred to the time of 10 minutes to 2 frequently on my channel. And I've been talking about 10 to 2 for quite a long time. A friend of mine once referred to that time, and I mentioned to her about the time itself, and she seemed to get rather fraught about the whole idea and thought it was, well, it kind of got under her skin. But that said and that put aside, I mean, I can't help that. But 1350, 10 to 2, nothing is an accident. Everything that happens is purposeful. And although the 10 to 2 clock times, which were started to appear, or at least when I noticed they were appearing more and more, especially in August and September, but certainly even since then it's a regular occurrence. In fact, it's a daily occurrence. I can't really deflect from that. It's a daily occurrence, not just 10 to 2, but I've mentioned before 10 past 10, 20 minutes to 4, 20 past 8. I do wish, it's kind of regrettable, but I wish I'd taken a photograph on each and every occasion that this happened and dated it, and put the whole lot up at once just to show you how remarkable this is. Just completely random, but as I say, nothing's random, it's purposeful. Having a look a wee bit into it myself, 1350 numerology, I can't speak, 1350 numerologically would add up to the number 9. Number 9 has got its own significance in numerology, and certainly it's the identifies a cycle, a completion of a cycle, and there's also the the fact of number 9 is well, I mean, I'm not going into every single detail on each of the numbers associated with this, but just generally 1350 or 10 to 2, whatever way you want to call it, has much significance, and because it keeps on appearing for me, I had a little look at things, and it certainly has a positive aspect. It's not a time of death, it's not a time of notification at the end of the world or anything of that nature. It talks a lot of humanitarianism, which I suppose in the last little while, apart from some negative aspects which have impacted on me, I generally have a much more kind of approach to life than I probably had when I was maybe younger or something. I think we're all like that as we get older and mature a little. Some mature quicker than others, of course. I actually found that I was more mature when I was 13 or 14-year-old than I was when I was 20, 25 or 30 for that matter, but that's sometimes the way life is, that you regress in order to progress. And I think that's exactly the situation I found myself in. A lot of the times I was, absent from the true pathway that I should have been on. I always remember having these very particular dreams of, if anyone knows Birmingham, just outside the famous Spaghetti Junction, one of the most complex motorway networks in the country. In fact, I think in the whole of Europe. Spaghetti Junction. Well, I used to have a kind of dreams about that, and also having dreams about trying to get onto a railway track. Always finding that somebody I was waiting for was on a platform, but the train was shooting by, or I was on a platform and she was shooting by on the train, or the train was going in the wrong direction. All this sort of stuff used to affect my sleep. Am I losing the drift of this conversation already? Probably, knowing me. Why it's so often difficult to have a conversation with myself. Let's say up and down used to say to me, will you stick to the point, you stop dithering, or perhaps I would be involved in the conversation and I would take the conversation in an entirely different route. So, but I always I had a very genuine, a very professional approach to conversations where I was able to, despite sidetracking from the original conversation or subject in the conversation, I could always return to that even if it took some time. And I used to do that, quite cleverly actually, because the time when most people had completely forgotten what we were talking about, I would return with the original subject. Kind of a wee bit like, I don't know if anyone remembers the two Ronnies. Of course they must remember them, but when Ronnie Corbett used to sit in that chair with his golfing stories, and he never actually told you anything about what he was starting with until almost at the end, because he kept sidetracking, well, that kind of thing. But that was obviously taken to the end of the spectrum as far as injecting humour. But do you understand what I'm saying? But 10 to 2 has happened so often, and the fact of the 10 to 2 is also paramount in the spiritual sense of it's basically a message from the guardian angels. So your guardian angels are presenting this time to you in order for you to be thinking of what you are doing at that given time. And I have to say, 9 times out of 10, I would be thinking about up and down to some extent, whether that greater or lesser, just prior to, because I know this because I've maybe been up at Almoree doing vlogs or something like that, and sometimes 10 to 2 would hit, or sometimes I'd be travelling, or there's so many instances, but that's just one example. But generally, that's what I was thinking on. But this was not negative. This was actually regarding positive change, and it also involved a lot of healing. So, for example, I was going through such a difficult period because of something which had occurred, and this started to formulate, and it was part of this kind of healing process. Now, even when I was overseas, I was alarmed on several occasions as to the clock times, which entirely matched up with much of my thinking. It was very, very uncanny, very bizarre actually, indeed. And I'm also thinking back to the 12th of September when I met that old woman. That was in the evening time. I'll give you one example, which I hadn't noticed until a couple of nights ago. I'm sorry if this camera picks up any dust. I haven't got my duster out recently. This clock has stopped. Now, it could be stopped at, 12 minutes past 7. Or, if you use a 24-hour clock, it stops at 19:12. Depending where you are, I mean, 1912 can have significance. It has for some, anyway. I never understood why these people who used to have like chairman of the board positions or or even people who have been interviewed, like Robin Day or something like that, or David Dimbleby or something. Why they always went like that? Well, they took a drink of water, didn't they? The water was always there, but I thought it was only there for show. But now I realise it was there for a purpose. And throat clearing seems to be a bit of a thing when it comes to presenters and people interviewing. What am I talking about? I'm also talking about the full aspects of the 10 to 2. The time of 10 to 2 has been on wall clocks, on wristwatch, on tower steeples. I can go back into the year 2020 when I first started to see the 10 to 2s. I think it was actually before that, but let's just keep to a half decent timeline here. But the 10 to 2 times were starting to come into play. And that's why I think I was eager to mention it to Up and Down when I met her in the springtime, because of the significance of these repeats. I think I can try and locate at least one of these and try and date it to show that I'm not making this shit up. I can show you, I can put on other clock times, but what I was saying to you was that I wish I'd taken all the clock times and all the wristwatch times, but it was just, it would have been a bit tiresome and probably a bit boring to keep on looking at the same time, but not for me, not on a daily basis. It was absolutely amazing. But what it generally means is a message from the guardian angels, and it is a period of aloneness. So it heralds a period of aloneness, which is exactly what I've gone through, more than anyone would probably even begin to realise. And it's not just over the last 6 months. It's certainly been a good couple of years of real isolation, complete isolation. Not always. It's not always wanted, but it's brought a point where I can of self-examination and stuff. But certainly when I was on the mountains and stuff, it was just it's unbelievable. Just the feelings, and particularly with nature. I must show you the picture of the pheasant. The pheasant that was there and waited all day for me to come back. I might put this on this vlog if I can kind of narrow it down and get on with it. Certainly, 1350 time was a time of positive change. Up and down is not. This is so big to know this. Up and down was part of the equation, and she pulled out. And she upset the whole apple cart. She doesn't know how badly she upset it all, but she was part of the formula. You can understand. It's this is really, really deep, really big, bigger than I ever knew, and certainly probably bigger than she ever thought. But I'm not trying to make this weird for the sake of it, because it's a lot of weird things on YouTube, but. I'm trying to stick to what I'm saying here, but doing it in a most, diplomatic way. The positive change comes from divine source, okay? Prayers are included. Now, I've talked an awful lot about divine, or divinity at least, in the last few months, and a lot of, that's not new to me, of course, but certainly over the last few months there's been lots of visits to, isolated churches and even cathedrals abroad, churches abroad, which I don't think when I used to go on holiday years ago, I would go and visit churches. I don't think I did that. And certainly all these church visits, which I have had, again, in the last couple of years, seems to tie in a lot with this fact that there's some divinity at play here. There's also been, I've not mentioned it, there's a lot of freedom attached to this 1350. So the time of 10 to 2 gives freedom, but also pleasure. So there's been a lot of freedom and a great deal of pleasure, but something's obviously missing from the pleasure, and that, of course, is up and down. Not my pleasure, but a pleasure for togetherness and the fun that should be having. There's also healing. There's abundant life, and I know exactly what that means. And communication. Communication has been very strong. It's been very strong from my side, but it's been nothing from her side. Nothing would tie in to say, oh, well, are you sure you're actually referring to up and down? Are you not? Is this not all just for yourself? That is a possibility, except it's each and every time that the thoughts and occasions, even when I went to visit the convent that she was staying in overseas, the time came up at 1350, not just once, and we also have 1111, which was quite significant. But the main thing here is faith. 1350 also ties into to having faith. I've spoken a great deal about faith. But the biggest one and the biggest surprise about the time of 1350 is love. And I never thought that a clock time could offer so much information. But love is connected to the time of 1350. What I may do in a separate vlog, so this one's not too long, is I might break it down into segments so that it's more easily understood. But it's all pretty, it's probably really pretty interesting stuff. I've also talked about the 2 dates of birth, adding up to 38, and 3 and 8 is 11, 11, 11, and 11, 11 comes up often. Very spiritual stuff, you see, and it's totally fascinating. I've got a full scale, what do you call it, 3 or 4 A4 pages just on one numerical calculation. But I'm not going to give too much away because it's, well, obviously privacy issues. I've mentioned this kind of stuff before. If you don't know what I'm talking about, and it doesn't make any sense, then obviously I'm not presenting this clearly enough. Or maybe there's some reluctance to think that why would a clock time hold so much information? Well, that clock time had been so presented to me on so many different occasions in so many different places that I had to start to think, well, there must be something in it. And it didn't matter where it was, it came up. And I actually got to the stage in doing some of my late summer, early autumn vlogs that I thought it's not even worth mentioning it anymore because people might start to get a bit fed up listening to me talking about it because it takes up valuable time on the YouTube upload. It's certainly it's been pretty amazing, and that's only just one time. But that's the one that's the most prevalent. And up and down told me that she was really annoyed about that, me mentioning it. I really couldn't I couldn't understand why that would be a source of annoyance for anyone. Just to mention, or at least to repeat back to them what they had originally told me.